This project is a box that I'm working on, and in particular the border right now. And there's nothing particularly special about the border. You can kind of see here some that I've already carved, so not real new or interesting in that regard. But what I did want to share is the fact that I'm doing the squares in the old world style. So these triangles here are old world that offset the squares, and I'm actually not using my standard old world carving knife. Normally for old world chips I would use something like this, and you can drive the heel of the knife down and then use the long blade to make that sweeping cut, which works well for larger chips, especially because of the being able to lay this down and get a nice shallow angle. For large chips you don't want to be digging down deep. I have another video talking about using that knife that I'll link in this video. But for these, actually, I'm using my normal chip carving knife, and the reason for that is the size of chips. That they're so small. The thickness of this blade is actually very substantial relative to the size of these chips, and so I would end up kind of pushing the wood, and I don't think I'd be getting the results that I want. So this blade is very thin, especially on the end here, and I really don't need to worry about the depth and being able to lay this down because it's so small. I just don't need to go very deep and lay the knife down that much. So I wanted to kind of share a bit about that process and why I'm not using my normal knife for this. And so you can see I just push down for this. I don't really need to use a lot of force. I just get the knife lined up on that line and then drop the tip straight down into the wood and make sure to stop it once I get to that back line. I'll just do a small series here for an example. And so then same on this side, just line it up, drop the knife straight down, and then got one more on the end here. And then this is the part that I normally would want that other style of knife for, in particular, so that I can make these nice sweeping cuts, but they're so small that it really doesn't make too much of a difference. And so what I like to do with this, since I'm drawing the knife toward me, I try to line up the angle of the blade so it's parallel with this final edge that it's going to make. So I'll just start it here and just pull it straight in line, and that helps make sure that this back edge is straight, that I'm not necessarily trying to not really focusing on carving that. I just make sure that the tip of the knife follows this line and that I keep the blade parallel to this line. And if I do those two things, then I know that third edge is going to be nice and straight for me and create this flush edge. So yeah, that's about it. I don't think I need to share a whole ton of these, but if you do have any questions on this design or the knife I'm using or whatever, feel free to ask. But just an example of chip carving's not necessarily, even though it's very repetitive and we're trying to get consistent and do the same thing every time, it's definitely not a mindless art or craft that you need to be actively engaged in thinking about what you're doing on every chip. And in this case, even though I'm doing old world, I don't use my old world knife. I am still using a standard knife to get the better results that I want.